Hey, this is Evans at Motorcycle.com, and we just spent a couple days riding these two Harley touring bikes. The difference between these, other than roughly $2,000, is the Electra Glide Ultra Classic has a fork-mounted fairing, and the Road Glide Ultra has a frame-mounted fairing. And so we wanted to see what the difference between these two motorcycles was, handling-wise, weather protection-wise. So what we did was we jumped on them for a 1,000-mile and 24-hour American Iron Butt ride, which you can find out about in a separate video. And then we just lived with them for a while. I got to tell you, my preconceptions were almost exactly wrong. I expected the Road Glide to be lighter steering because the fork was not connected to the fairing, and so it was just acting on the front wheel alone. Did you have any similar preconceptions there, Tom?
Well, if living with a bike is traveling 1,000 miles in 24 hours, kill me now. That was fun, but I don't think I'd do it again. While we were doing that, we were talking in our communicators, right? And we did hit a really gusty patch of wind. And I think we both agreed that, this guy with the frame-mounted fairing, you could feel it, working the bike a little bit more. Or this guy was a little bit more rock solid. So, between the two, though, I think that's the biggest difference, other than this provides more, wind protection. You've got a few more vents to open up and close, and you've got some, the lowers and inside pieces here that keep the wind off of you. So, that's, I think, the biggest difference. And then maybe a little bit with the windscreen, right? Not quite the same.
Maybe it's the height of the bars. These are nice and low, and I felt like I was much closer to them, and those are higher, more pulled back. But I felt like I was steering that bike with a tiller, and having the fairing that much further away in front of me added to that feeling of it. On our communicators, we were talking about the difference in the way they handled it. This one was a little bit stiffer, a little sportier, and that was plusher. And I was wondering if that's because of the weight bias of where it's carrying its weight. It just doesn't get as seesawy over bumps. I'm not sure. I'm really trying to puzzle it out.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because on the spec sheet, these things read exactly the same.
I talked to the folks at Harley. They are exactly the same. There's a difference in the engines, in that one has the twin cooled.
Right.
This one is just oil and air cooled.
But a 2 foot-pound difference in torque, and that's not really measurable by the seat of your pants.
But the chassis geometry, down from the tires, the wheel size, the rake and trail, everything is exactly the same. And if you overlay a picture of the two bikes on top of each other and toggle between, you'll see a change here where the fairing grows, and on here where the rack appears. And that's it. Otherwise, these bikes are identical. So it's kind of interesting how they can feel so different, at least in my perspective.
Well, when we're riding them back to back, I had this bike a week before we even did our trip, and I did a bunch of miles on it prior to that, and I was completely happy with this motorcycle before I jumped on that one. Not that this one I was unhappy then, but yeah, the change is so incredible. Just between a handlebar and fairing setup, you would almost think you're on two different bikes. If you close your eyes, sat on one, jumped on another one, you would think it's completely two different bikes.
Your body is in a really different riding position. If your feet are in the same place and your butt's in the same place relative to the triple clamp, moving the handlebars up and rearward does angle your body in a different position. This feels, dare I say, sportier, because you have a little bit more forward lean, but I just felt more in contact with the bike when we went through winding roads and when we did U-turns for the photos. I felt that I had much more finesse with the Electra Glide.
Yeah, I would agree. No argument there. I think, for some people it's going to depend on, this has some nice little storage compartments here that are weighted.
Yes.
It's got the connector for the phone. We were wearing electrics on our ride because it got pretty cold during that event. And, this has got a plug right down here by your left knee where the Electric Glide, you got to kind of go up and cross over and, get up here under the fairing. So this has, the $2,000, you're just paying for some niceties, basically, over what this doesn't have. But for the extra money that this has, it should come with the Daymaker headlight that one does, because that thing's incredible.
This was so amazing. At night, when Tom was following me, with his high beam on the Daymaker, I could not tell where my high beams, and that's two bulbs right there. I could not tell where my high beams were. I could see my shadow, and the Daymaker from behind me was brighter than the twin headlights.
Yeah, it was at that point that we said whoever's riding this bike is leading.
That's right, because we went through some pretty dark areas. Open range in the middle of the night, the moon went behind the clouds. The only lights out there were our headlights.
Yeah.
And that made a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, for me, we were talking off camera stereo-wise. I mean, I really like the stereos on these. Both of them are incredibly clear, really loud. You know, I wasn't wearing earplugs, but with a full-face helmet, you know, when I was riding before our Iron Butt thing, I was sitting there listening to talk radio, going down the freeway at 80 miles an hour and just listening to everything that they had to say, clear as a bell. So I just thought it was pretty amazing. I'm so impressed. And then we found out today, you know, we didn't do passenger stuff, but you can actually change the radio station via the passenger accommodations back here, which might lead to some arguments between the spouses, but, you know, that is kind of a nice thing to have.
Just so you know how loud Tom likes to listen to music, when our communicators were on, it was playing loud enough to keep his mic triggered, so I stopped listening to music on my bike and just listened to it through my headphones while I was talking with him.
Yeah, we were doing Name That Tune for a while.
Yeah, yeah. That's how loud it gets. I want to talk about the wind protection. There is a pretty significant difference in wind protection with that one. The Electra Glide does have these nice little winglets. When they're closed off like this, increases the still air envelope, but you still get a pretty large amount of air when it's cold around through here. You don't do it right there. Now, riding in the summer, that's exactly what you want, is more airflow around your body. At 35 degrees, like it was for us, it got a little bit nippy. So that's just something to be aware of if you're in a climate that has lower temperatures. When it comes to storage capacity, both of these bikes are identical. Same bags, same trunks. And so that doesn't really differentiate them. They're just big touring bikes. So the primary difference between these bikes and the $2,000 is frame-mounted fairing, fork-mounted fairing. If I were spending my money, I would save the $2,000 and go with the Electra Glide Ultra. The riding position is more compact. I like the layout of the instruments, particularly the boom infotainment system. The screen is smaller, but it feels bigger because it's closer to the rider. On the Road Glide, it's further away, and it's more of a reach on this few times you do actually have to touch the screen. Whereas on the Electra Glide, it's right here, right in front of you, and I preferred that layout. Other than that, they're really the same bike. So the sun is going behind the ridge here, and the temperature is going to start dropping. We've got snow on the hills up there. I think we need to wrap this up. So, your choice.
I think we're both sort of leaning that way. And some of that's going to like price and styling. I mean, I just kind of like that ultra classic look of that one. Yeah, it just appeals to me. It's blue. Maybe I'm biased. You know, I love blue.
But your wife has brown eyes.
True.
Okay, well, that's it. I'm pretty sure that when we get to the scorecard, the Electra Glide Ultra Classic is going to be the winner. But just to make sure, why don't you go to Motorcycle.com and read the whole story where we go into it in a lot more detail.